See, most of us think we have two choices when faced with toxic behavior: fight back or fold. But there's a third option, and it's the one that actually works. Smart people don't engage. They don't wrestle in the mud because they know something research tells us over and over again: you can't change people who don't want to change. And more importantly, you don't have to lose yourself trying. So what do they do instead? Toxic people don't walk around wearing neon signs that say, "Warning, I will drain your energy and make you question your worth." But they do show patterns: manipulation, blame shifting, an inability to take responsibility. Smart people don't excuse these behaviors. They acknowledge them for what they are. I used to believe that if I just understood someone enough, if I had enough patience, if I could just find the right words, then maybe I could help them change. Maybe I could fix whatever made them cruel or controlling or incapable of saying I was wrong. But here's what I learned the hard way. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. One of the biggest myths we tell ourselves is that toxic people don't know what they're doing, that they're just hurt or lost, and if we love them well enough, they'll eventually wake up and be different. But research and life tells a different story. The reality is many toxic people are highly aware of their behaviors. They know exactly what to say to make you question yourself. They know how to twist a conversation so they come out looking like the victim. They know how to keep you tangled up in their mess, doubting your own reality. And the more you try to prove yourself to them, the deeper you sink into their cycle. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Most of us don't see the signs right away because they're not obvious at first. Toxic behavior doesn't always start with cruelty or blatant manipulation. It starts small. Maybe it's a joke at your expense that stings a little too much. Maybe it's the way they dismiss your feelings with a laugh. "Oh, you're so sensitive." Maybe it's how every apology comes with a "but." "I'm sorry, but you're overreacting." "I'm sorry, but if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have said what I said." And you start questioning yourself. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am being too sensitive. That's how it starts. Subtle, small, just enough to make you doubt yourself, but not enough for you to leave. And once they know you'll tolerate it, it grows slowly, like a vine creeping up a wall, until one day you look around and realize you're completely wrapped in it. So how do smart people recognize the signs before they're trapped? They pay attention. They listen to how they feel around someone instead of just what that person says. Because words can lie, but your body doesn't. Research shows that our nervous system picks up on toxic behavior long before our brain catches up. Ever had that uneasy feeling around someone but couldn't explain why? That's your gut detecting something your mind hasn't processed yet. Smart people trust that feeling. They don't gaslight themselves into staying in places where they feel drained, belittled, or unsafe. And here's the thing, recognizing toxicity doesn't mean labeling people as monsters. It's not about saying this person is bad. It's about saying this person's patterns are unhealthy for me and I don't have to participate in them. Because at the end of the day, whether someone is intentionally manipulative or just emotionally immature doesn't change the impact they have on your life. Smart people don't wait for proof. They don't wait until the damage is done. They trust the early signs, the patterns that repeat, the way someone makes them feel about themselves. Because once you see the signs, you have a choice. You can make excuses for them, or you can make space for yourself. Smart people choose themselves. Smart people set boundaries like their peace depends on it, because it does. Research shows that people who establish clear, firm boundaries experience lower stress and higher self-esteem. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. Smart people decide who gets a key. Now let's just get this out of the way. Setting boundaries with toxic people isn't easy. If it were, we'd all do it without hesitation. But the truth is, most of us struggle because we've been conditioned to believe that setting boundaries is mean, that saying no makes us difficult or selfish. And if you've ever dealt with someone who thrives on guilt tripping, you know how quickly they can make you feel like the worst person in the world for simply protecting your own peace. But here's what I've learned. The only people who get upset about your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. Think about that for a second. Healthy people, people who love and respect you, don't get offended when you set a boundary. They don't make you feel guilty for needing space or saying no. But toxic people, they don't like boundaries one bit, because boundaries mean they can't control the way you show up for them. So let's talk about what boundaries really are. They're not about changing other people's behavior. They're about changing your own responses to protect your well-being. A boundary isn't, you can't talk to me like that. A boundary is, if you talk to me like that, I will remove myself from the conversation. See the difference? One is trying to control the other person. The other is taking ownership of your own choices. I used to think that if I could just explain myself well enough, if I could just help people understand why I needed a boundary, they'd respect it. But toxic people aren't interested in understanding. They're interested in testing. They push and poke and argue and guilt trip, not because they don't understand, but because they do and they don't like it. So here's what smart people do. They set boundaries without over-explaining. They don't hand over a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation on why they need space. They don't beg to be understood. They just state the boundary and follow through. I won't be discussing this topic anymore. I can't make that commitment. I need time to myself right now. Simple, direct, non-negotiable. They don't get pulled into debates about their boundaries. Toxic people will argue, twist your words, make you feel like you're being unfair. Smart people don't take the bait. They know that the moment you start justifying, you've already lost. The boundary is not up for discussion. They enforce their boundaries with action, not just words. Because here's the thing, saying I won't tolerate being spoken to like that doesn't mean anything if you keep engaging with someone who disrespects you. Boundaries don't work unless you follow through. And yes, sometimes that means walking away from a conversation, distancing yourself from a relationship, or even cutting someone off entirely. It's hard, but you know what's harder? Living in a constant state of exhaustion and resentment. And they let go of guilt. This is the big one. Toxic people will make you feel selfish for setting boundaries. They will call you cold, unkind, ungrateful. And every time that happens, I want you to remember this. Choosing yourself is not a betrayal of anyone else. At the end of the day, boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about deciding who you let in and on what terms. Smart people don't wait until they're completely drained to draw the line. They do it early, they do it clearly, and they do it without apology. Because their peace, their self-respect, and their mental well-being, that's non-negotiable. Smart people don't waste time explaining themselves. Here's the hard truth. Toxic people thrive on pulling you into justification, argument, and self-doubt. But as Maya Angelou said, never explain yourself. Your friends don't need it, and your enemies won't believe you anyway. Smart people disengage instead of defend. Now, I'll admit this one took me a long time to learn, because if you're someone who values fairness, who genuinely cares about being understood, walking away from a conversation that feels unfinished is hard. Everything in you wants to explain, to clarify, to make them see your side. You think, if I can just find the right words, if I can just get them to understand, then maybe they'll change. But here's what I've learned. You cannot make someone see the truth when their entire identity depends on denying it. Toxic people aren't looking for understanding. They're looking for control. They don't argue to find resolution. They argue to keep you hooked. The moment you start explaining yourself, they've got you, because now you're playing their game. Let me give you an example. Imagine you set a boundary. Maybe you tell someone, I don't feel comfortable being spoken to that way. A healthy person might say, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'll be more mindful. A toxic person, they'll say something like, wow, so now I can't even express myself around you? I guess I'm just a terrible person. And suddenly the conversation is no longer about the way they treated you. It's about their feelings, their hurt, their need to be reassured. And just like that, you find yourself apologizing for having a boundary in the first place. Smart people don't fall into this trap. They know that the moment someone starts twisting the conversation, shifting blame, or making them feel guilty for standing up for themselves, the discussion is no longer productive. And so, instead of engaging, they choose a different response. Silence. Now, I know what you're thinking. Silence feels impossible when someone is pushing you for an answer. But here's something most people don't realize. You do not owe everyone an explanation. You don't have to explain why you're saying no. You don't have to justify why something made you uncomfortable. You don't have to prove that your feelings are valid. Because when you start explaining, you're really just asking for permission. And smart people, they don't ask for permission to protect their peace. There's a reason toxic people hate silence. It takes away their power. They can't manipulate what you don't engage with. They can't twist words you never say. And most importantly, they can't pull you into a fight you refuse to have. And here's the most powerful part. When you stop explaining, when you stop seeking their validation, they don't know what to do with you anymore. Because the only people who benefit from you constantly explaining yourself are the ones who were never going to respect your boundaries in the first place. I used to think that walking away from an argument meant losing. That if I didn't defend myself, people would believe whatever was said about me. But then I realized something. The people who truly know you don't need an explanation. And the ones who demand one, they were never going to believe you anyway. So smart people don't waste time proving themselves to those who are committed to misunderstanding them. They don't get trapped in circular conversations with no resolution. They don't hand over their peace in exchange for the illusion of closure. They say what they need to say once, and then they move on. Smart people stay grounded in their own self-worth. Toxic people are great at making you feel like you're too much, too sensitive, too demanding, too emotional. But the reality, their discomfort with your boundaries has nothing to do with you. Smart people don't let someone else's insecurities define their self-perception. I used to think that if someone had a problem with me, it meant there was something wrong with me. That if I could just be less sensitive, less opinionated, less me, then maybe I'd be easier to love, easier to accept. But here's what I've learned. Shrinking yourself for someone else's comfort doesn't make you more lovable. It just makes you invisible. Toxic people have a way of making you doubt yourself, and they do it so subtly that you don't even realize it's happening. One day you're confident in who you are, and the next you're questioning everything. Your reactions, your choices, even your worth. They do it with little comments that chip away at your self-esteem. Wow, you're so sensitive. You always make such a big deal out of things. No one else had a problem with it, just you. And at first you brush it off. But over time, those words start to settle in and you begin to wonder, am I the problem? And that's exactly how they keep you stuck. Because as long as you're questioning yourself, they don't have to change. Smart people recognize this pattern early. They understand that someone else's inability to handle their boundaries or emotions is not their responsibility to fix. They don't take on the weight of another person's discomfort just to keep the peace. Because here's the thing. Peace at the expense of your self-worth isn't peace at all. It's self-abandonment. There's a powerful concept in psychology called gaslighting, where someone manipulates you into doubting your own reality. And toxic people, they are experts at it. They rewrite history, twist your words, and make you feel like you're the one who's always overreacting. But the truth is, when someone constantly makes you question yourself, it's not a reflection of your flaws, it's a reflection of their need for control. So how do smart people stay rooted in their self-worth when faced with this kind of behavior? They get clear on who they are, and they don't let anyone else define that for them. They remind themselves that having feelings doesn't make them weak, that setting boundaries doesn't make them difficult, that saying no doesn't make them selfish. And they surround themselves with people who reflect back the truth not people who distort it for their own gain. Smart people also know that when someone says, "You've changed," it's not always a bad thing, because more often than not, what they really mean is, "You stopped letting me walk all over you." Growth threatens people who benefit from your lack of it, and the moment you start valuing yourself, really valuing yourself, you'll notice that the people who relied on your self-doubt will start falling away. But that's not a loss. That's a win. Because at the end of the day, the relationships worth keeping are the ones that make you feel more like yourself, not less. So smart people don't internalize toxic narratives about who they should be. They don't shrink to fit someone else's comfort. And they don't let the insecurities of others become the lens through which they see themselves. Because when you know your own worth, you stop needing other people to validate it. Smart people don't try to fix toxic people. They understand that healing isn't something you can force onto someone else. No amount of love, patience, or self-sacrifice can make another person change if they aren't willing to do the work themselves. I used to believe that if I could just be understanding enough, if I could just say the right thing, show enough kindness, or give enough chances, then maybe I could help someone see the damage they were causing. Maybe they'd finally get it. But here's what I learned, and it wasn't easy. People don't change because you love them harder. They change because they decide to. And that decision, it's not yours to make. Toxic people have a way of keeping you stuck in this loop, this endless cycle of hope and hurt. They do something damaging, you call it out. They make just enough of an effort to keep you believing they might change, and then nothing. The cycle repeats.